Welcome back. You're watching HFO-TV, co-sponsored by AMF Capital, the Baljanik Law Firm, the Butler Exchange Group, and the construction firm J.R. Johnson.
Welcome back to HFO-TV. I'm Greg Frick, partner here at HFO Investment Real Estate, and today we're lucky to have Christian Kaylor back again. Thank you. He's the state economist for the state of Oregon with an emphasis in Portland.
Yeah.
Good to see you again.
Good to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about kind of, I know we're 3/4 of the way through 19, but kind of look at the numbers in 19 compared to 18 and kind of what you're seeing. I know we've talked off camera a little bit about kind of the income growth, but we'll kind of dive into that. So again, thanks for coming, and let's just jump right into it.
Yeah.
Give me kind of the rundown, what the new reports are saying. Where's Portland and Oregon kind of rank up on a national?
Yeah, I mean, coming out of now the summer, getting deeper into the fall, I'm feeling better about looking at where 2019 is compared to like 2018, 2017.
Was there a concern at the end at this point last year that we're closer to things slowing down? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, we're at 2.5 years of unemployment rate at about 4%. So you can't create jobs at 4%.
Right.
I mean, you just can't do it, right? The only way to create jobs at 4% is to have a lot of people moving into the community, because where are the new workers going to come from?
Right.
And so, once we hit 4%, and again, that was about 2016, 2017, we were getting down to about 4%, and we're still there. Or, maybe day to day we're at 3.9 or 4.1, but we've just been stuck at about 4% the last 2 or 3 years. And I update my report every month. It's very boring. It's either 3.9 or 4.1. It's one of those three.
But we're down at that number.
But we've been down at that number for 2.5 years, and I'm thinking, there's nowhere to go. We're totally dependent on population growth, which is not the worst thing in the world, but it's not great either, because again, if for whatever reason Portland becomes less attractive to people moving here, that's right. It doesn't matter if businesses want to grow, can't find the people.
Can't find people, they're going to go somewhere else.
End of the story, right? So Portland keeps sort of defying gravity with that. We're not the only place in the country that's doing that. A lot of West Coast places like Seattle, the Bay Area are doing it too. And I feel like those guys are more walking point, because the cost of living is so much higher. It again just feels like, how long can they keep it up when you're paying extremely high rents? The traffic is terrible.
Right.
So they're still doing it, we're still doing it. Yeah.
Would you imagine you would see a slowdown, say Seattle, San Francisco, before it touches here, or does it, the advantages of Portland while we've got, people coming here, is that a concern, or is it more of the whole West Coast going together?
Well, keep in mind, Seattle and the Bay Area are much more tech dependent.
Right.
Tech's a big part of Portland's portfolio.
But not to the extent those two.
Yeah, so if, I'm making up a scenario here. I'm not doing a crystal ball, but you might remember 20 years ago, the government went after Microsoft for antitrust issues. So if suddenly, the U.S. government started going after Amazon or Google or something and saying, we got to break you up, you're a monopoly or something. I mean, right. you could see that being an earthquake sort of a situation. I'm sort of making up a scenario, but if something happened in tech that really rocked the world of tech, they would be more sensitive to that than we would.
Well, we've got still a more diverse, I would say, economy, maybe not as diverse, but size. We don't have such big dominant players in Portland as we do in some of the other cities on the West Coast.
By some metrics, Portland is the most diverse economy in the country.
Okay.
Which I generally personally like.
Yeah, for sure.
And part of that is like the Midwest has traditionally been much more manufacturing heavy, and they've places like Detroit and Cleveland have really paid the price of that.
Right.
Over the decades with trade issues and automation issues. So I'd kind of, if I had a choice between one or the other, I'd probably rather be more diverse. We're never going to take off 10% in a given year, but we'll probably if a single industry gets hit, Portland's just about as resilient as it gets in America.
So in saying that, I mean, what do the numbers say in terms of job growth and income growth within Oregon and Portland that you've seen in the last report, I guess, since we're at the end of third quarter of 2019?
Yeah, we're on track so far. We're growing at about 2% job growth in the Portland region, a little faster than the rest of the state, noticeably faster than the rest of the U.S.
Okay.
1.9% is technically the number in the entire economy for job creation in the last 12 months, and that I suspect will end up about there for the year.
And what does that compare to 18?
It's a little slower. I think it was maybe closer to 2.5% off the top of my head. But again, at 4% unemployment,
Right.
We're creating 25,000 jobs a year in a region with 4% unemployment. You know, we need to pull in 25,000 people every year, which means you have to develop a place for them to live.
Right.
You know, so as long as that machine's rolling along, but again, it makes me a little nervous because there's a lot that could go wrong there. But so far, it just keeps rolling, and part of it too is every industry is growing. With only
So it's not one segment that's driving everything. We're seeing it across the board. It's not.
No, I mean, construction's up a lot, 4%, but manufacturing's up almost 2%. Healthcare's up 1.5%. The only areas we see weakness are restaurants are basically flat, which is interesting. And retail is down almost 2%. Year over year, and that's pretty big. Now, retail's down nationally as well, but not quite 2%. So I don't know what story is coming across there, but I mean, nationally, the story is clearly companies like Amazon,
Right.
e-commerce.
There's been some disruptors in the retail.
And as much as retail is up, wholesale trade and trucking is up, you know, big numbers.
Right.
You know, we got about 12 months ago-ish, a big Amazon distribution center came online in the Troutdale area, you know, 2,000-3,000 jobs there. You know, so we gain some here, we lose some over here. So again, even with that retail number, which I think is just part of a broader trend in America, retail and the internet, I'm not seeing any weaknesses in any sectors. And I look every month.
Yeah, I know you do. We look at your report. Now, I know we've talked before about the surprise in this, since the recovery, how it was kind of so Portland central in terms of the recovery, the job growth, and also the income growth. I mean, are we still seeing, because, you know, Portland had a huge rise in, you know, income over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Is that, I know we've talked about that as well, is that toning down a little bit, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. We're getting a more diverse kind of income growth, not all at the higher level. Maybe you can kind of point to that a little bit.
Yeah, so my sort of favorite industry to pick on with this is we have an industry called professional and technical services.
Right.
Which, you know, is the type of name that government economists come up with to, you know, it's a very boring sort of name, but includes all the law firms, architecture firms, accounting firms, advertising firms, a lot of software engineering firms are all included in this category. It's the fastest growing sector in Portland over the last 10 or 20 years. And so it's grown about twice as fast as the rest of the economy in the Portland area. And you're talking about lawyers, computer programmers, engineers, accountants, scientists, architects, who typically make six-figure income.
And that's saying higher educated, bachelor, master's degrees.
Yeah.
Okay.
And those are the folks who are moving to Portland in the largest numbers. Younger adults, 20s and 30s, with these bachelor's and master's degrees. Just disproportionately moving here compared to most of the rest of the United States. And those businesses are growing in Portland. And again, those are sort of feeding off of each other. And you're talking about, you know, some of the highest income occupations and industries. And Portland just becoming more of a professional services hub where we have engineering, accounting, and software services. And these folks are selling their product online all across the planet.
Whereas 10, 15 years ago, we were manufacturing. We were, you know, kind of a hybrid manufacturing.
Yeah,
we
consumer, healthcare, you know, but yeah, this is a new thing for us. And you know, you see the commercial real estate market in downtown Portland. And so that's where they're moving into. And as long as that stuff's coming online, they're moving into those places. I don't track commercial real estate as much as some other folks, but you know, the price per square foot of commercial real estate in Portland compared to the Bay Area or Seattle, you know, maybe half or something.
We're still cheaper. I mean, even on a living side, I mean, per unit, we're still, you know, the lowest on the West Coast. When you look at LA, San Francisco, Seattle, we're still, you know.
Yeah, and I think there's the wage pressure thing is actually very interesting too, where you have folks in the Bay Area or Seattle, you got a computer programmer making $200,000 a year. You're talking about somebody who's making, you know, the 99th percentile of income in America. But in Seattle or the Bay Area, you can barely afford a home, you know, for $200,000 a year in the city of Seattle, the city of San Francisco. So I think a lot of those folks are turning to their bosses and going,
do I have to be here?
Do I have to be here? You know, because I could move to Portland, my kids could go to good schools. That $200,000 income buys me a really nice house in Alameda or Ladd's Addition or the West Hills or the Pearl District. A lot of great stuff I can do with restaurants, a lot of good places I can spend my money in the Portland area that maybe they don't have those options in like a Medford or a Spokane type situation. They got that sort of cultural amenities that they want to spend their money on. And so I think a lot of those folks are turning to their employers in the Bay Area, San Francisco, saying, boy, you pay me really well, but the cost of living is so incredibly high.
Which has always been our economic advantage here. In terms of job growth and people coming here, in terms of the cost, what it costs to live here compared to what,
Yeah, so we're kind of drafting off of them, which is interesting.
Yes.
And again, it's a little scary because you watch them, and as you said earlier, I just wonder how long we can sort of keep that up. But talking about the professional and technical services industry specifically, we got the 2018 payroll data a few months ago for them, and they're just totally booming. And every fourth quarter they put out bonuses. So you see every fourth quarter you see this spike in the total payroll. We don't have sales tax in Oregon. That's probably a good thing generally. But for me, I don't have any data on sales. But I do have data on, because we don't collect the data.
On payroll we have it.
But on payroll, because payroll taxes.
Right.
And so if you look at the payroll taxes, and this industry is totally booming, well over $1.6 billion in the Portland region in payroll in 2018, they spiked by about $1/3 billion in their bonuses, which is a record for them in the Portland area. So they're doing really well. I mean, and again, this is across, I went through it. It's the software companies, it's the architecture firms, it's the engineering firms. And so I think international corporations know that if they put an office in Portland, they can get skilled workers. They don't have to pay as much as they would in the Bay Area or San Francisco.
Right.
People love moving to Portland, so the workers are happy to relocate to Portland, and they can book a lot of business, and we're seeing it in their payroll numbers, which are just astronomical.
And again, some of the downside, but then you have the issue of the question of affordability. Like you said, if you got unemployment at 4%, you're still having job growth. You're importing this migration to Portland. You're going to have, without development, you're going to have inflation.
And we are seeing. I mean, one of the reasons I looked at that data for professional and technical services, we're seeing multiple industries sort of go up in their average. I'm looking for inflation in the payroll, and you see that across many industries, but you see it in professional and technical the most. And so again, to me, I think it's a sign that those businesses are doing really well with their workers. They want to reward their workers. They want to keep those workers. They don't, at a 4% unemployment rate, you got to keep them happy. So year end rolls around, you put those bonuses back out there in paychecks so that, if the economy does slow down in the next couple of years, they won't leave.
Right.
They'll stay loyal. So
what has that done to the average, in terms of income for the city of Portland, in terms of ranking in other cities?
Right. So we got some data here last month from the U.S. Census on 2018, and to the cities. The city of Portland is now, among major U.S. cities, the 8th highest income city in America.
Which is, we've never been.
It's funny. I was thinking about this. I'm going to forget some of the organizations now. I've been doing this job almost 20 years. And 2004, 2005, coming out of that recession, a couple recessions ago, the 2002, 2003 recession, one of the big focuses of a lot of the business organizations in Portland was lower wages.
Right.
At Oregon generally, but Portland specifically, they said, boy, if you look at where City of Portland ranks, so back in 2005, Portland was sort of tied with Phoenix and Minneapolis for average income.
Within the city of Portland, Phoenix.
Yeah, within the city of Portland proper. We weren't seeing these really high wages, and that sort of affected everything. But part of it was that there's a lot of discussion on the government side that tax revenues weren't where we wanted them. We're dependent on an income tax. We have a property tax, obviously, but we don't have a sales tax. So as incomes go up, that's revenue for the government to run basic government services. And so coming out of the last recession, there are places that still, unfortunately, have had to shut down libraries and fire stations around the state. They're saying, well, creating jobs is part of the story, but if you're not increasing wages,
right,
you're not growing your tax base, really. So there was actually a really interesting initiative around sort of what do we need to do to increase, and education was mentioned a lot in that discussion. In 2005, Portland was an average city for income. So If you visited Portland, like I did in the 80s and 90s, we were a relatively lower income major city, but you don't have to go back that far. You can go back to 2005 and see Portland is really a mediocre city for income. And now we're in the top 10. We're the 8th highest income city in America. So it's been incredible.
That's a pretty substantial growth.
I only a few cities grew faster than that, and I think Seattle and San Francisco are the two, but are just about those two that did it. But Portland has just transformed, and the reason is this incredible influx of highly educated people moving into the city in big numbers.
Right. Now, are you seeing? So we've had this going on for. You said this is since 2005, where we are today. Are you seeing Portland rise the rest of the state up in terms of bringing up that income, or is it really centrally located here and you're not seeing the job growth, or you're not seeing the income growth in, Roseburg or?
Yeah, and again, if you're familiar with the Portland area over the last 10, 20 years, we've seen a tremendous amount of gentrification, particularly North Portland area.
Yep.
But also Central East Side, and,
yep.
just driving around through here. I was driving through, it's around Sandy and 11th and 12th, and the goat blocks, I guess they're calling them,
yep.
and you remember what that was like even 10 years ago. So it's nuts, but it's that has been concentrated in the urban core in a really interesting way that you don't see in most of the United States, where you see these younger folks in their 20s and 30s disproportionately moving into North Portland, West Portland, Northwest obviously doing really well, around Portland State doing really well, Central East Side doing really well, but much less so the suburbs, although it's really hit or miss. It depends on the community you're looking at. But outside of the city of Portland, it's different. So not as much in Vancouver, although I think that's changing now.
They've done a little initiative to do some more development downtown.
I think Vancouver's now finally moving up, especially along the waterfront there. Got some great projects. I think it's taken a few years for them to get there, but I think now they're cooking. The west side particularly, I think Hillsborough particularly is definitely picking up on some of that now. But Clackamas County, not as much. Gresham, not as much. A place where these younger professionals want to live. And a part of it, again, is these jobs are just disproportionately clustering downtown Portland.
Right.
So that commute and that traffic becomes more and more of an issue for folks that are going to work in an office building downtown.
Or how far out do they want to go to drive in, and then you've got...
Yeah, and again, I think Washington County's doing okay with it. Clackamas County is just really not. Oregon City isn't really seeing it. Gresham isn't really seeing it. I think Vancouver's just starting to,
Washington County is probably, of all the counties, the one county, or the 4 county areas that does have, higher wages per se when you've got as opposed to
and Nike and Intel obviously, but there are other corporate leaders. I feel bad, I always pick on them, and people come to me and they go, that's Nike and Intel, but there's so many corporations they're doing great work out in Washington County, and it's growing. I hate picking on just those two because there's a whole ecosystem going on in Washington County.
Right. As opposed to what you may not see in like Clackamas, or we've seen a little bit. We've seen a kind of a Clark is kind of Washington has taken on, but again, it was started at a lower number anyway, and it's slowly coming up.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that it's not going to end at the city borders. It's the city of Portland has really spiked in the last 10 or 15 years, but I think the region is going to benefit from that more and more. And believe it or not, I think as traffic gets worse and worse, I think people are gonna. Yeah. I think jobs are gonna move closer to the people, and I think people are gonna be able to move closer to their jobs as zoning permits. So.
And what are you seeing on housing? With our audience, that's the big kind of, what's going on with trying to provide more housing and the affordability issue, displacement. I mean, in terms of an economist, you look at that, and like you said, when you've got job growth, when not enough people to work, you're going to have immigration.
Yep.
And at that point, if you're not doing enough supply, we're seeing it up and down the West Coast.
Yeah, but again, the amount of supply, it's just so odd. You're seeing record amounts of supply coming in.
Right.
My newsletter last month was talking about residential building permits. Residential building permits in 2019 are on track to be above where they were in 2018.
Yeah.
Multifamily and single family in the Portland region. Developers can be wrong. In recent memory, they've bet wrong before. I think it worked out okay, but there were a few painful years there, 2011, 2012. But we're creating the jobs at a pace, and we're seeing the people move in at a pace those vacancy rates aren't yet a problem because, again, all three of those parts are moving. We're seeing the job creation, we're seeing the housing construction, we're seeing the in-migration. Now, if one of those chains breaks down, then it's going to be a problem for all three. But so far,
But you're not seeing signs of that. I mean,
I'm not, and I think
bumps here and there. I mean, we had a little vacancy uptick in the core because you had so many apartments. But if you look at a long-term 3-year horizon, there's not enough supply to offset all the growth here. So it's one thing to tick from a 2% to a 4% vacancy rate.
Yeah,
it's not like we're talking 5 to 20 or 5 to 15. We've seen in some Phoenix or markets like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, I would. Right. I mean, I would worry more if I was in Las Vegas, maybe Phoenix, but I think Las Vegas is one of those places, because they're so tourism dependent. If a recession comes, one of the first signs you see is a decline in consumer confidence. Those numbers are at record highs, and we're seeing consumer confidence nationally very strong. One of the reasons Las Vegas is booming, and it's absolutely booming right now, people going on vacations, feeling good about the economy. If you are looking, and I look all the time for negative signs, tea leaves for the future, Las Vegas will feel it first, and they'll feel it harder than almost, maybe Orlando in the country, or maybe Nashville or something. But they're going to start seeing those tourism dollars decline. It's going to hit them much harder than most places in the U.S. And their real estate market, the way it's built, they had a really tough time 10 years ago.
It's kind of set up for the roller coaster a little bit.
Yeah, so I would, if watch Las Vegas. But again, you look at the job numbers in Las Vegas, and they're fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
and historically, Portland, Oregon's usually late getting in and a little slower coming out. But I mean, like I said, we're still chugging along.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're looking for weakness, manufacturing is slowing down. Not in Oregon, but in the Midwest, we're seeing some signs of manufacturing flat or slightly negative in some states. East Coast, flat or negative, and I haven't dug in to see if that's automotive sector or what that is. But high tech is growing nicely in the Portland region right now for job creation.
So, any concerns? Is there any? I mean, you say you're looking weekly for this sign of, the canary in the coal mine sort of thing. I mean, what is? I mean, like you said, look at Vegas is a thing that may say that the economy nationally is slowing down. I mean, what other things do you look at?
Temp agencies.
Yeah.
The first, when businesses start to see stuff slow down, the first thing that they do is they sort of go, well, we don't need a temp, and they're actually relatively flat and a little weak, to be honest with you. But they've been weak for the last couple of years, and my colleagues, I used to have better contacts with them, but I haven't chatted with them lately. My colleagues are saying, well, they don't have any bodies.
Right, they don't have people you put it, yeah.
Businesses call up and they say, hey, we'd really like to get a temp out here. And they go, well, I got nobody to send you. The unemployment rate's 4%.
Yeah.
So that's one I do
They're
track.
slowing down for a different reason.
Yeah. They say, well, we're slowing down, but it's not for that reason.
Right.
Wholesale trade, shipping, if manufacturing and construction are two that I look at closely. But again, if you see companies buying less stuff, you'll see a decline in wholesale activity, warehousing, transportation, truck transportation, rail transportation numbers. And again, we're just not seeing it.
Yeah.
I know it's going to happen someday.
Oh, yeah.
But I have no signs of it now.
Well, thanks for the update. Thanks for coming again. We'll see you next time on HFO-TV. We'll go from there. Thank you. That was great, man. That's perfect.
Our entire office specializes in multifamily real estate, making HFO the largest multifamily brokerage in the Pacific Northwest. Your success is our passion. Build your legacy with HFO. Call 503-241-5541 or visit our website at hfore.com for more information.